Hello, my name is Mark Taylor and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place for creative and inspiring learning from around the world. Listen to teachers, parents and mentors share how they are supporting children to live their best authentic life and are proving to be a guiding light to us all. Hello, thank you so much for joining us again on the Education on Fire podcast. Today our spotlight really is on early years and foundation stage, and I'm going to be chatting to Ben Case, who works for the Foundation Stage Forum. Now, if you haven't come across them before, really they're a gathering of voices and a place to seek advice, to debate, make connections, and really just to be able to come together so that you can learn the best practices for children in this early stages of their learning. Now, Ben had previously been a reception teacher at a school in Littlehampton, and he's been involved in Tapestry and their online journal. And he's now made this transition from working in school to being as part of Tapestry Towers, as it were, and has used this experience of working with 4-year-olds to help him adjust to working in an office. And he finds that really handy now working with colleagues, and also makes him obviously a very knowledgeable education advisor. He also tweets a lot and runs the Tapestry support group on Facebook. If you're unaware of Tapestry, it's an easy-to-use and secure online learning journal helping staff and families collaborate their children's learning and development. And Tapestry builds a very special record of children's experiences, develop and learning journey through their early years in primary education, and it uses photos, videos, diary entries and the teacher and early years practitioners along with the child's parents, and it weaves together a story of the child and how they're growing and developing. I'd like to take this opportunity just to thank NAPE, the National Association for Primary Education, our sponsor. And if you want to find out more information about their free YouTube series and also to get a free copy of their Primary First professional journal, visit their website, which is nape.org.uk. That's nape.org.uk. But this is my interview with Ben Case talking about the Foundation Stage Forum and its relationship to Tapestry. Hi Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day, and tell us a little bit about your working situation at the moment, bearing in mind we are still currently all in lockdown.
Yes, luckily with Tapestry support and Foundation Stage Forum, we were able to all work from home quite easily. So we just literally picked up our laptops and took them home, and I think, it's been a strange setup, just not having the usual team around you to have general chats, but we've made it work with different sort of online video calls and our chat system and everything like that. And I think it's worked quite well, really. It's in that side of things, I'm doing okay, thanks. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I should just mention this moment, we were just chatting just before we started recording. There are 3 of my children doing online schooling, plus everyone trying to work from home as well. So if you do hear any background kind of crashing and banging or anything like that, then that's the situation where we're all in the house together doing the best we can. But so far so good, which has been fantastic. So let's sort of reverse everything in. Give us a little bit of a background in terms of how you got into your sort of teaching and how that then currently got you into your current situation.
Yeah, I mean, I trained actually on the University of Sussex on their 7 to 14 PGCE with the science background, because I did a chemistry degree years ago, and I wanted to get into teaching, but I did a few other things along the way. I managed a restaurant. I used to have my own shop selling horse tack stuff. So I've done quite a few things before teaching. But then, as I said, I signed up to the course at Sussex and really, really enjoyed the primary part of it, but not so much the secondary side of things. And the people on the course, like the course sort of facilitators, were well aware of it and helped support me and everything. And I've just, fell into sort of primary school. For my NQT year, I started teaching at a primary school it was actually a junior school I started at in Littlehampton. And after a few years there, we amalgamated and became a primary school. So I sort of went from the upper key stage 2 section, then went down to year 1 and then into early years, and sort of followed that sort of path and sort of floated around there. And I think I did about 10 or 11 years there, which absolutely loved the time there at school. And during my time in reception, I used Tapestry a lot, and sort of got to know Steve and Helen from Tapestry, because they were based fairly locally. And one thing led to another, and they offered me a job, and the time was right for me. I felt it was, yeah.
And it is amazing, isn't it, how these things all do they're sort of almost like a river. They kind of sort of meander around a bit. You think you know where you're going, and then all of a sudden there's a little sort of side exit, and you do something else, and opportunities arise. And I really like it in sort of your example there of it being very organic, because it was an organisation, like you say, you knew about and you were aware about, and it's sort of a very natural progression.
Yeah, I mean, it was after sort of, because obviously Tapestry have got alongside the Foundation Stage Forum, which is an amazing resource of lots of teachers coming together and discussing things. But I always found that looking on Facebook, I would always see lots and lots of questions from Tapestry users saying, "Oh, how do we do this? And how do you do that?" And it was like no one was going to the forum to ask these questions. So I just sort of approached Steve and Helen and said, "Would you mind if I set up a Tapestry group on Facebook?" And that was, I can't remember how many years ago now. And we're just about, I think we've just hit 15,000 members of that group now. So it's grown quite significantly over the last few years. And as I said, that's kind of really helped me get to know sort of Steve and Helen and the rest of the Tapestry group. They're all a lovely bunch there.
And for those people who either aren't directly involved in early years or aren't as familiar as you will be, give us some sort of specifics about the sorts of support and the sorts of things which you give support for.
With Tapestry, it actually goes from sort of the early years up to Key Stage 2 now. So there's lots more primary schools that are sort of buying into it. But the support that I sort of give and the whole team give is generally just how you get the most out of it. So someone might have questions about how they could use a part of Tapestry, especially for the tracking, because the tracking side of Tapestry is really powerful, but you have to be using it the right way to get what you want. It's like any tracking system, really, unless whatever you put in has to be good quality to get something out of it. And it's just sort of that's one thing we really do support people with, learning how to use things. We're bringing out new features all the time as well, so supporting people when we're bringing those out. Since the lockdown, we brought in quite a few. So one of the ones I'm really involved with is activities, where we're adding activities to Tapestry for our users to be able to sort of set them to the children and for the families to use. But they can also add their own activities and sort of set those as well and refer to them back later years, which I think is another really powerful thing. But yeah, I think our main support really is just that, helping people get the most out of what they're signed up to, really.
And that is often the thing, isn't it? It's like so it's almost like having a brand new car, isn't it? You know it does lots of things, but there's only so many things you can do and so many things you're allowed to do and so many things you could work out yourself. And actually having that facility to really understand the whole package, as it were, it must be really supportive, like I say, to be able to sort of ask and ebb and flow with those questions.
Yeah, and I think as well, like having such a strong support network, such as like the support tickets we do, and having the Facebook group, we're able to see what people are looking for. So one of the things at the beginning of this lockdown was you were only limited to, I think it was a 3-minute video on Tapestry, which, for most situations is more than enough. But actually what we're seeing is that people, like teachers, were wanting to upload stories. And it's very hard to read a story in 3 minutes. Or like my wife downstairs has been recording lots and lots of lessons. So last night we were busy recording a maths lesson and in the lounge and everything. And it was like, we got to 6 minutes. I was holding up the 4-minute timer and she was like, okay. So, it's become a little studio in our house.
Yeah.
But and because we saw that through what people were asking, we were able to actually increase the limits of videos on Tapestry to 10 minutes, which has really helped a lot of our customers to be able to use the tools that they want in the best way.
I mean, that really is great to hear, and I think it's the one thing that I've been aware of in this current situation is just how fast companies have been able to adapt to support teachers and schools in exactly what they needed in unprecedented times. So it's not like you've had months and months of R&D in terms of knowing what was around the corner. It literally was, here we are, completely different world. What can we do within the facility that we've got? And it sounds like you've really done the most for everybody.
Totally. I mean, I think the roadmap for development for Tapestry has been completely rewritten now. I think our developers are like, okay, where are we now? It's which has been, and it's been so. This is I think the main point for me has been being involved in that development, which is I think I've found fascinating, and something I didn't really appreciate when I was in the classroom, just how much goes into each of the features and everything like that.
And I think even before we, like you say, we were all working from home, just the reliance we have on technology and all that data gathering and the support that we want to do is vital, isn't it? And I think the way that you can work, like I say, in creating these roadmaps and seeing how it's going forward can be really, really important. And do you just think it's now just become even more integral and will become even more so once schools start to reopen, which we're sort of in the process of starting a little bit more now, but I think it's going to be a different looking version of school for quite a long time to come.
Oh, definitely. I think it's the future for education, especially the near future, is going to be very different. I think this whole, at the moment, they're talking about bubbles and everything like that, and it's going to be even more challenging for teachers and for the children and for the families involved, which is where I think like having the sort of that homeschool link is so important. And I was actually looking into this in preparation for today's chat, and we found that in the 8 weeks before lockdown, observations uploaded by relatives, there was just over 450,000, which to me was a lot. In 8 weeks, 450,000 observations by the relatives. Sorry, it's an impressive number. But since the lockdown started, in the 8 weeks since then, there were just over 4 million observations added by relatives.
Wow.
And that to me just shows how things have changed so much. And it's no longer sort of schools giving parents just this. It's about getting stuff back from the families as well. And I think that's one of the key things that schools need to make sure they carry on into the future.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, and it's something that first struck me. I did an interview for the National Association for Primary Education, and I was talking to one of their founding members, John Coe, and he was saying sort of the education world has in certain recent times, it's been kind of, your son or daughter goes to school and you do the learning and then you sort of do the parenting. And he said, actually, in the past, and actually in some ways a more cohesive way, is the fact that we all have slightly different jobs because we are parents or we are the teachers, but actually it's the combination of that community together all giving feedback and working together as a whole which actually is the most supportive for children. And I think now, because of our insights as parents, because we've had our children at home learning and vice versa, I think that's automatically sort of happened without us actually having to think about it too much, just because of the situation.
Yeah, totally. I think, in early years especially, the focus is the child. So it's all supposed to be child-centered, everyone working around the child. There's lots of meetings about the child. That's how it works. And I think that is what is filtering through the rest of education, which I think can only be a positive, really, because we are working all for the child at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and I think that's a key message. That's certainly a key message for NAPE as well, which I'm sure they'll be really interested in. And I think the reality of learning it, like you say, in this situation has been absolutely key. So let's just spend a few minutes also getting sort of your advice and your wisdom, partly from being a teacher, but also having been through the education system. And what did you find valuable about your school experience? And you can have that both in terms of anything you remember from being at school, whether it's like a favourite teacher or whatever they did, and also because you've sort of been in the classroom as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, being sort of going back quite a few years now, when I was at school, I just I don't really remember there being that much interaction between my home life and my school life. Like from the teachers getting in touch with my parents, apart from a school report that used to land on the doormat. I used to take the school bus every day, and then so my parents never came to school. That was from sort of about the age of, I think it must have been 11. So in that respect, it's, for me, the whole parental engagement thing wasn't really that strong. But then, things were very different back then. We didn't have the communication tools that we have now. And I think that's where things really changed when I started in the classroom. Because having Tapestry as a tool for me as a teacher, I was able to get really in touch with those parents as much as I needed to, and I felt they could get in touch with me as much as they wanted to as well. So when if they brought their child in and they were a little bit upset during the day, one of the key things that I needed to do during that morning was to make sure, first of all, that the child was settled and happy, and then create an observation and send it home to the parents straight away so they could see that their child was sort of happy and settled, because that whole communication will help sort of ease the parents' minds, help them sort of appreciate what's happening, and then I found that they were more willing to work with us as well.
I think it makes so much sense, doesn't it, in this day and age? It's not like everyone was at the school gate dropping off and now everyone's also picking up because of work situations and breakfast clubs and after school clubs, and the fact that our lives generally are very organic and very quick. We send a text, we send an email, we do whatever, and it seems only natural, really, that there should be that facility to be able to do that. And like I say, peace of mind, and especially if, like I say, if a child's been slightly upset at the beginning of the day, to know within that day that everything's okay, or if there's anything that needs to be pointed out, is such a different thing than just having to wait till whenever you finally get home and get those details then.
Yeah, and one of my favourite examples I always used to say to other parents would be junk modelling. A reception child or any child making something from junk modelling, it's their imagination, and they, to have someone say to them, "Wow, look at your," for example, boat, when they've seen it for the first time. For a child, that is so important. So if I saw a child doing things with junk modelling, another thing I'd make sure I was doing was sort of making an observation, putting that into the parents straight away. So by the time they picked up their child at the end of the day, they had seen this junk modelling observation and they knew what it was. So when their little child came out with these boxes all stuck together with tape and glue and buttons and everything stuck on it, they could say, "Oh wow, look at your boat, that's so amazing." And you could see the child, their face lit up, because what they had made was being recognized. And I think for them, that self-worth for the child was important, and it also helped the dialogue. It gave the parents something to talk to their child about. Now I've got a 14-year-old now here, and for many years now, it's like, what have you done today at school? Nothing. Yeah. When she was at primary, she was at the same primary school that I taught at, so I knew the things she'd been up to. But I'd still ask, what have you been up to? I knew that she'd had like amazing days, and nothing. It's just like, and that's what a lot of parents get, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we can all relate to that as parents, and like I say, it's a lot of it is actually, like I say, having that in, isn't it? Because how was this, how was that, rather than that, what have you been doing?
Yeah.
It's like they come out and they switch off as if they've been anywhere other than in being at school.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What was the best advice you've ever been given, and who was it that gave it to you?
Now, I think as a teacher, the best piece of advice I was ever given, and unfortunately I can't remember who it was, it was I'm not sure if I should probably share this because it could get people in trouble. It was if someone gives you a piece of paper, a form to fill out or something like that, wait until they ask for it a second time. Because what I found was that you'd be given these pieces of paper to fill out, and you could spend maybe an hour filling out this piece of paper. You could fill out for 2 hours, who knows? And then you give it to them. And I remember there was one case, I gave it in, and they said, "Oh yeah, I'll just put that in a drawer somewhere," and they didn't even look at it. And I was thinking, what has this piece of paper given, apart from wasting my time, what has it achieved? Nothing. So from then on, I actually only did sort of say, if someone asked for something twice, they obviously actually did want it. It wasn't just going to be put into a drawer. So that was probably one of the best time saving piece of advice I had.
Certainly in this day and age of red tape and all of that kind of thing, like I say, even if it only cut a few things out, it's going to make a massive difference to your life, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. But I think the other thing I've always taken, I think, and this has been from a very early age, is just to be approachable for everyone. So I think before and after school, I was always at the classroom door or the classroom gate, talking and available to the parents if they wanted to. And I think, to me, that was so important because, keeping on with this parental engagement thing, getting parents to feel that they are part of their child's education, having the time to talk to them, I think is so important for them. And not just sort of disappearing as soon as you open the door, and when you send the children out, staying in the class. I think it's just being visible and approachable. And that was something else that someone said to me. I can't remember who it was again. It was just make yourself available for them. Not all the time, obviously, but at appropriate times, so that they feel that they can come to you.
Because I think what that does is it brings the ethos of the school, doesn't it? It brings, the school is the sum of its people and the energy that comes with that. And I think that sort of open ability to be able to have that conversation, I think, is much more than just, like you say, the words that interact in any given conversation. It's actually much more than that.
Yeah, and it always makes it easier as well if you ever do need to speak to a parent. If you've always had a chat about the fun stuff, it just makes it a bit easier when you have to have a chat about something that's maybe a little bit more serious, because they've got that trust in you. They know that they can talk to you and everything like that, and you're not just the person who walks towards them when something's gone wrong for the day, and everyone else knows that they're having to do that walk and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that sort of movie thing, sort of slow motion, like say everyone just sort of moving. Yeah, I know. I remember that from sort of doing the school running and sort of picking up, and especially as they get older, because you're sort of further away from all the class teachers, and you see them start to wander through all the parents in your direction. It's that.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, no.
Okay. Is that me or is it someone around me? Yeah, that's great advice. I really like that. And what advice would you give your younger self now, looking back?
I think to give my younger self, it would just be, again, just to be kind and approachable to everyone. Everyone is going through something, and you might not know what they're going through, but you can support them in your own little way. And whether that's a child in your class who you don't know what's happened before they come to school, and that might be why they're having a troubled start to the day, give them the time, be approachable again to them. Same for the parents, though. You don't know what they've gone through, and just sort of make yourself sort of respect their situation as well as best you can, and just do the best you can for people. I think that's how I would hope that people would see me anyway.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I think it's really important, because I think it sets something up in yourself which is very different then, doesn't it, in terms of starting from someone else rather than, I've had a busy day, or this has been my situation in class. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah.
And just to round off, and let's assume that Tapestry and the forum is something which you would all definitely be a resource that you'd recommend. Is there anything else that you would use that you would recommend to people, or that they should think about exploring?
I mean, I think when I was teaching, I found Twitter really, really valuable, especially in the early days of Twitter. I sort of fell out of love with it a little bit, sort of the last few years. But actually, I then realised that was just because the people I was following, or the accounts that I'd maybe sort of gathered, weren't probably the ones that I should be following. They weren't the same kind of mindset as me and stuff like that. So it wasn't engaging for me. But the people and support you can get on Twitter, if you surround yourself with the right people and the right teams of people, I think is such an important. It's like a massive, massive staff room of fun people. I take part in a weekly hashtag chat on a Wednesday night called EY Share. And that, to me, that has just been a brilliant way of just getting everyone together and just talking about specific topics. But it's also, you get the same people sometimes, you get a few new people, which is great. But I think just having that sort of that group of people who you can approach and ask for advice and stuff like that. And I think there are a lot of teachers on there who are in the same situation and just find it such a nice place to be. And as with all social media, it will have sort of a negative side to it. But if you don't engage in that, then there's nothing. Again, if you don't engage in it, then they can't bite, and it can't have an effect on you.
I think that's very wise, and it's the sort of thing that you'd be, trying to explain to the people in your school as well, isn't it? In terms of how you want to interact with people, and I think it's something about, there's something about, Twitter specifically in education, which is so valuable in as much as, the support network that you can have and the information that you can gather is global, and actually it's all out there. It's no longer the case that you can learn from the best teacher in your school or maybe within a cluster group. It's kind of, there's so many things out there that you can gain in, and I think it really is. Twitter definitely is such a valuable place to do that. So tell us where we can find out more about Tapestry and the Foundation Stage Forum and all of those things, so that people can find out more details.
Tapestry has got its own sort of website, tapestry.info. On that, you can find out all the features it has. We have articles related to Tapestry and also primary, everything. But yeah, so that side of things is sort of really where it pushes the information for Tapestry. The features side of things, we've got documents, we've got activities, we've got memos. There's so many new things as well that are in the pipeline, which I won't talk about in case because the problem with the roadmap is that if things don't work out, if you get people's hopes up. So that's the tapestry.info website. But then everyone who signs up to, or who has an account on Tapestry, also has access to the Foundation Stage Forum, which is at EYFS.info. And this site has articles from going back years, from very sort of influential people, people who are experts in their field. But it also has, as you'd expect from the name, a forum where people can ask questions about anything, especially during this lockdown, and sort of the mixed advice that has been passed around. It's been a great place for people to support each other and just to try and get the answers that maybe someone hasn't understood. They've asked the question and others have said, oh yeah, this is how I understood it, or as an education team, we've been able to go and find the answer for people, contacting people who we think may have the answer. So I think, yeah, those two places, the tapestry.info and EYFS.info, just such valuable resources, and yeah, recommend everyone goes and checks them out.
Fantastic, and we'll have links to those on the show notes of this episode as well. So if you go to educationonfire.com and in the search bar just put Ben Case, and then that'll pop up, and then we'll have details of everything that we've talked about today. So, well, Ben, thank you so much for chatting. It's really interesting, and as I said, I'm really loving the fact that everyone involved in education is just really doing everything they possibly can to make this current situation work. And I hope that the sorts of resources and the sorts of things which have been developed and the new way of working and relationships with everyone is going to be a positive thing as we start to get schools open again and go back to some kind of normality.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I just wanted to say actually, I think the next round of CBeebies auditions is going to be very tough. Um, Looking at all the videos that teachers are putting out there, I think they're doing such an amazing job, and I think we're so lucky to have an education system where people are working so hard for the benefit of the children.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much, Ben, and wish you the best in the forums from here on in, and look forward to chat again soon.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information of each episode and to get in touch, go to educationonfire.com. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.